Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really taking a close look at employee onboarding. And I mean, not just the HR checklist stuff, we're talking about it as a strategic investment because the sources we looked at paint a pretty stark picture. Organizations are spending, well, thousands, maybe millions on these learning management systems, on content. And then just 3 months down the line, what's the engagement? It averages around 30%. That huge investment basically becomes this digital graveyard, as the research calls it, grim stuff. So, our mission for you today really is to figure out how we get from that, well, dismal 30% engagement up to maybe 80%, which the data suggests is actually doable maybe within 6 months if you combine the right approaches like microlearning and social learning. And crucially, how do you measure the actual business impact, the financial side?
Absolutely. And the stakes are incredibly high if you don't fix it. When you look at what truly effective onboarding achieves, and I mean, the kind that's more than just a single day orientation, the numbers speak for themselves. We're seeing things like an 82% improvement in new hire retention, 82%, and productivity. That goes up by over 70%. So if you know that, sticking with a broken model, well, it's just actively costing you talent and money.
Okay, so let's dig into why it's failing so often. What are these friction points right at the beginning? One thing that jumped out was this huge disconnect. You've got, what, 89% of L&D pros saying skills are vital, but then only 36% of employees say they actually have time for learning during the work week. That's a massive gap.
That time issue, it immediately points to a couple of big problems. There's the technical friction, and then there's just content overload. Think about LMS fatigue. Your average employee is already bouncing between like 36 different cloud services daily.
36. Wow.
Yeah. So then you throw another platform at them, often one that's kind of clunky, maybe takes 5 clicks just to watch a 3-minute video. You're asking for a lot of effort for very little immediate payoff. That friction alone is enough to kill engagement, even if the content itself is great.
That technical barrier is definitely significant. But okay, let's say they get past the clicks. What about the content itself? You mentioned relevance. Are there specific learning science principles just being ignored here?
Oh, completely. It really boils down to fundamental adult learning theory. Adults need, basically, 3 key things that most programs miss. First, it has to be immediately relevant to their job, like right now. Second, the goals need to be achievable, sort of bite-sized so they don't feel overwhelmed right away. And third, they need social proof. They need to see that this learning actually matters to their boss, their team, key people. Generic training just fails on that first point, relevance, straight away.
And we saw a really clear example of that relevance failure in the sources, didn't we? The financial services firm.
Yes, exactly. They had this one generic leadership training. Rolled it out to everyone, branch managers, customer service reps, risk analysts, totally undifferentiated.
Yeah.
And the result, a completion rate of just 22%.
Ouch. 22.
Because, if you're that risk analyst and you can't see how this specific module helps you with your compliance tasks today, why would you prioritize it?
Right. And if you're just force feeding them huge amounts of stuff that isn't relevant, or maybe it's just too much at once, you run straight into the forgetting curve.
Absolutely. Ebbinghaus wasn't wrong. Without reinforcement, structured reinforcement, people forget something like 70% of new information within just 24 hours. Combine that cognitive overload with the natural stress of starting a new job, well, the information just doesn't stick.
And this whole problem just got worse with the shift to remote and hybrid work, didn't it?
Definitely. It exposed all the weaknesses, all that casual learning, just, absorbing things by watching colleagues or your manager handle a situation that disappeared. And Gartner says, 48% of employees are now remote, at least part-time. So you can't rely on osmosis anymore. You have to intentionally design ways to integrate culture and social learning.
Okay, so diagnosis, too much friction, not relevant enough, and just plain information overload.
Let's pivot to the solutions. You mentioned starting the framework before the employee's first day. Tell us about pre-boarding.
Yeah, pre-boarding isn't a nice to have, it's essential. It's all about setting expectations and clearing out those logistical headaches before they start. So best practice is getting the IT-sorted laptop, login, software access all done beforehand. Day 1 shouldn't be IT support day. Send a welcome package, maybe schedule some virtual coffee chats with the team. Just clarify what that first week looks like. It builds excitement, reduces that first day anxiety. Okay, so pre-boarding sets the stage. Then they arrive, officially. We need structure.
The sources talk about the 5 C's of onboarding. Can you quickly list them, and then maybe we can dig into why each one matters?
Sure. The 5 C's, and these really need to be covered deliberately probably over the first 6 months or so. They are compliance, that's the necessary legal stuff. Clarification, understanding the role, expectations, culture, the values, the how we do things, connection building relationships,
You are
and check back ongoing feedback and performance docs.
right. Compliance and clarification feels like that's often where traditional onboarding stops, just the basics covered by the LMS. But where do programs usually fall down on the other three, culture, connection, and check back? They fall down because those aren't just tick box exercises. They require, actual human interaction and time. Culture and integration isn't reading a policy doc. It's things like storytelling sessions, workshops on values in action. It needs immersion. Connection needs structure too, like assigning buddies, setting up specific social learning groups. It doesn't just happen. And
No.
checkback needs managers who are actually trained and enabled to give good developmental feedback, not just a year-end review.
That leads right into motivation. If we're asking for engagement over, say, 6 months, those little short-term rewards, like a badge for watching a video, that's not going to cut it, is it? How do we tap into that deeper intrinsic motivation?
You hit it exactly. Short-term extrinsic rewards, like badges, might give you a quick bump, but they don't last. Intrinsic motivation, feeling competent, seeing progress, connecting learning to job satisfaction, that's what creates lasting change. Look at that manufacturing client example from the research. It was fascinating. They shifted the goal entirely. Instead of just finish these 5 online courses, it became demonstrate this specific technical skill in a practical setting.
Ah, so competency-based.
Exactly. Competency-based progression. It immediately linked the learning to actual career growth and skill development. And what happened? Engagement shot up from 34% to 71% in just 4 months.
34 to 71%. That's huge.
Yeah.
But making that shift, moving to competency-based goals, that must require serious manager involvement, right? And managers are often overloaded already. How do we make this manageable for them? What guidance actually works?
Yeah, you can't just dump it on them. You have to enable them. The data shows active manager support can double or even triple engagement rates. But the guidance needs to be super specific. Things like hold short weekly check-ins focused only on learning and applying skills, not general status updates. Managers should maybe even learn alongside their teams sometimes, showing it matters. And crucially, publicly recognize when new skills are being used effectively. If the manager doesn't visibly value it, why would the new hire?
Okay, so the manager is key to delivery. Let's switch gears a bit to the delivery tactics themselves, especially dealing with short attention spans. Microlearning comes up a lot. How small are we talking, and why does that specific size matter?
We're talking really focused content chunks designed to fit into the flow of work, not pull people out for hours. The sweet spot seems to be around, say, 3 to 7 minutes for a video, maybe 5 to 10 minutes for an interactive module. And the key is each little piece has one clear, actionable learning objective, just one thing.
And the impact of just breaking things down like that can be pretty dramatic, right? Like that healthcare organization example.
Oh, it's a perfect illustration. They had this critical but really dense 90-minute compliance training module. 90 minutes. They broke it down into 12 shorter, focused micromodules. Completion rates didn't just nudge up. They jumped from 45% way up to 89%.
Wow.
But here's the kicker. The actual behavior protocol adherence improved by 34% in the following quarter. So it proves microlearning isn't just about getting things done faster. It actually helps with retention and, more importantly, application on the job.
Okay, so we break it down, but then we have to ensure it's the right content for the right person. You said earlier, generic onboarding is dead. How vital is personalization?
It's non-negotiable now, really. Personalized content, tailored content, sees completion rates that are about 65% higher than generic stuff. The most straightforward way to start is with role-based learning paths. Think about that retail example. They created 5 distinct paths, one for store associates, one for managers, regional directors, and so on.
Right, tailored to each role.
Exactly. And their first month engagement went from 52% up to 88%. And maybe even more impressively, their time to productivity, how fast new hires became fully effective, dropped by 40%? 40%! That's a massive business impact.
40% faster ramp-up time. That gets attention, and the sources hint that technology, maybe AI, is the next step in making personalization even deeper.
For sure. That's where things are headed. AI systems that can do things like predict who might be struggling or at risk of disengaging, or AI-powered chatbots that can answer very specific role-based questions instantly, 247. Early results are showing that this kind of AI support can lead to engagement rates that are like 3 times higher than just relying on a static FAQ page.
But even with all this tech, we shouldn't forget the human element, right? Social learning seems critical, especially with remote or hybrid teams where connection can be harder to build.
Oh, absolutely essential. It's the glue. That financial services client example really highlights it. They set up these virtual learning circles, small groups, maybe 6 to 8
Hmm.
people. They'd meet regularly just to discuss the microlearning content, talk about challenges, solve real problems together based on what they learned. Engagement within those circles, it hit 94%.
Hmm.
Compare that to only 41% for people who just did the modules alone.
94% versus 41, that's a stark difference.
Huge. It provides that connection, reinforces the relevance because you're talking about it with peers, and it gives that social proof we mentioned earlier. People see others engaging.
And speaking of reinforcing things, what about gamification? We see companies try it, but the sources seemed a bit cautious. When does it actually work?
Yeah, it's tricky. Gamification can work, but only if it reinforces the desired behaviors, not just activity. So things like team challenges focused on applying new skills to solve a complex, real-world task, that can be effective. But if it's just superficial stuff, points and badges for clicking next on modules, it usually falls flat. It can even undermine that intrinsic motivation we want to build.
Okay, makes sense. So we've got the structure, the delivery, the motivation piece, but it all comes back to proving the value. What's the biggest mistake organizations make when they try to measure the success, the ROI of their onboarding?
The single biggest mistake, and we see it constantly, is measuring activity instead of impact.
Yeah.
They focus entirely on completion rates. Look, 90% of people finish the module, but
Yep.
then you look closer and there's zero change in actual employee behavior or performance on the job. You're just tracking clicks, not learning or application.
So completion rates alone mean you're basically flying blind, as one source put it. If that's the wrong thing to track, what should we be measuring to capture that real impact?
You have to shift focus. Measure if new hires are actually demonstrating specific observable behaviors. Are they hitting key performance indicators faster? So real engagement metrics look different. It's things like, yes, maybe time on task, but also interaction patterns in discussion forums, quality of peer discussions, feedback from manager check-ins, and most importantly, hard business metrics. Are sales conversion rates improving? Are customer service errors decreasing? Things like that. Productivity gains.
We talked about that potential 70% productivity boost earlier. Let's connect that to real dollars. What kind of numbers can actually justify overhauling an entire onboarding program? Give us the ROI story.
Okay, the ROI can be truly compelling when you measure the right things. Take that sales organization example. They implemented a structured 6-month onboarding program focused on skills application. They measured the average deal size for new hires, and it increased by 18%, tangible revenue.
18% larger deals from new hires.
Yeah. And for their company size, that translated directly to $4.2 million in additional revenue in the first year alone. The total cost of revamping and running the onboarding program, about $150,000. So do the math. That's a 28x return on investment.
28 times ROI. Okay, that's the kind of number that gets an executive's attention, not just completion percentages.
Exactly. That's the business case. And it goes beyond just that direct ROI. Organizations that get onboarding right also see, on average, about a 60% higher overall revenue growth rate year over year because they're getting skilled, engaged people productive much, much faster.
So wrapping this deep dive up, it sounds like transforming onboarding from that leaky 30% engagement to a successful 80% isn't some kind of secret sauce or magic. It's really about methodically applying these core ideas, making it relevant, making it accessible through things like microlearning, building strong social connections, and having managers who are truly bought in and equipped to support it.
That's it. And crucially, remembering the time scale. Effective onboarding isn't a one-week event. It needs to be seen as at least a 6-month journey. Those later months, say months 2 through 6, that's where you focus on really deepening skills, achieving role mastery, and seeing that performance growth. It's not just about surviving week 1.
Right. Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. We know that companies great at onboarding see 30% higher innovation rates, 34% better retention. We also know 93% of CEOs say they need better ways to understand and use their workforce's skills. So thinking about your organization, what's one specific measurable technical skill that's critical? And how could you accelerate developing that skill by completely redesigning just the first 90 days of your onboarding? Think outcomes, not activities. Think impact, not just checklists.